Let's talk about Bitcoin. Now, I have a number of good things and bad things that I could say about it, but I don't want this video to be an hour long. So I just want to focus on one problem with it, the energy consumption. Now, Bitcoin's been getting a lot of press lately due to the Trump administration and the fact that it's gone up quite a bit in value over the past few years. I used to be fairly neutral about Bitcoin, but the more I looked into it, the more I saw problems with it. One of the big problems for people trying to understand Bitcoin is that there's a lot of people invested in it who want it to go up in value. As a result, they make a lot of outlandish promises about how it will revolutionize the world. These investors are generally the loudest voices, and they know that if they promote it enough, other people will buy it, which will increase the price, and they'll get rich. So they have big incentives to say nothing but good things about Bitcoin. That means not many people talk about the problems with the technology. The first thing to look at is this chart of Bitcoin's energy consumption. The Bitcoin network is made up of a lot of computers distributed all over the world which communicate to each other. This is the energy consumption of millions and millions of computers involved in Bitcoin transactions. The first thing you'll notice is the obvious increase in electricity consumption over time. This is roughly a 20-fold increase in energy consumption since 2017, and this trend will continue into the future. This increase in electricity consumption isn't actually because a lot more Bitcoin transactions are happening, it's because the Bitcoin price is going up. The second thing to notice about this graph is the scale of electricity consumption. I've included a graph of the electricity consumption of Argentina and Poland for comparison. The energy consumption of Bitcoin is one reason that China outlawed Bitcoin mining back in 2021. Now, for the point I'm about to make, I need to explain a little bit about Bitcoin and how it works. Computers in the Bitcoin network that process transactions are called the Bitcoin miners. The Bitcoin network makes Bitcoin miners solve a very complicated puzzle to process new transactions. This puzzle is just a bunch of useless busywork designed to make miners spend processing power and electricity as a form of security. This complicated puzzle means that one computer will randomly solve the puzzle first and will get picked as the winner. And by winning, the computer is rewarded with a few Bitcoin. This Bitcoin is generated out of thin air. It isn't transferred from another account. The odds that any one miner will win the competition depends on how many Bitcoin miners there are in the network. If there are 1 million miners, then the odds of any one miner solving the puzzle are 1 in 1,000,000. So here's an example. There are 3 Bitcoin miners. The price of Bitcoin is $20, and the reward for solving the puzzle is 6 Bitcoin, so the reward is worth $120. From a gambling perspective, spending $35 on electricity to have a 1 in 3 chance of winning $120 is a good bet. On an average turn, your expected win is $40, which means that you'll get $5 profit on average each round. But what happens if we add more miners to the network? If we add more miners, then the odds that any one miner wins declines. If your expected return drops too much, then your miner is losing more money on electricity than it's earning. Some Bitcoin miners will temporarily or permanently shut down. This network can only allow 3 miners to make a profit. But what if the price of Bitcoin goes up? It increases the expected return, which means there's a financial incentive to add more miners to the network. And more miners means the network consumes more electricity. Now, in my example, the price of Bitcoin went up by 33%, and it resulted in a 33% increase in energy consumption. This is a bad situation. Now, there is a counteracting force. Every 4 years, the Bitcoin reward is halved. This reduces the number of miners and energy use. However, this only happens every 4 years, and as you can see, it hasn't stopped energy consumption from going up. By the way, if you want to double check that what I'm saying is true, we can look at the charts of Bitcoin energy use next to the Bitcoin price. And in the second chart, I've adjusted the Bitcoin price based on the halving, which gives a more accurate view of the rewards given to miners. As you can see, when the green line goes up, which is the price of Bitcoin, the red line, which is electricity consumption, goes up afterwards. So what does this all mean? Well, currently the price of Bitcoin is $80,000. The fact that we're using as much electricity as an entire nation shows that we're already in a danger zone. And if the price of Bitcoin doubles, the electricity use will double, and then we'll be using as much as Mexico, a country with 130 million people. Some of the Bitcoin evangelists are predicting that Bitcoin will reach $1 million or $13 million. This is 12 times and 150 times its current price. This would be disastrous for the planet. Here's some actual numbers. If Bitcoin reached 13 million, it would require all the energy that the entire planet currently produces. If that seems impossible, here's the data. Bitcoin currently consumes 176 terawatts of electricity. If Bitcoin price goes up by 150 times, it means the energy consumption will go up by 150 times. That means 176 terawatts turns into 26,000 terawatts. Now, I will say in fairness that Bitcoin halving, which happens once every 4 years, will reduce this number. Also, if Bitcoin was suddenly 13 million, what would happen is that there would be a massive build-out of new computers to the Bitcoin network, and that wouldn't happen overnight. And the energy consumption is related to the number of computers on the network. What it would do, however, is cause a massive shift in the economy away from productive things and towards the production of Bitcoin miners and energy production. Meanwhile, the rest of the economy would be strangled. Why create anything when you can make a bunch of money building stuff for the Bitcoin network? This is what I mean when I say it would be a disaster for humanity. On some level, I'm kind of amazed that someone could create a mechanism where people would be financially incentivized to commit actions to damage the planet and economy so badly, and people become evangelists to promote it. And it's not just electricity. Bitcoin mining produces a ton of CO2. It also creates a lot of electronic waste because computers wear out and have to be replaced by something faster. This would drive up electricity prices and electronic prices for everyone. We already saw this a few years ago when Bitcoin miners were buying up graphics cards, causing a shortage and skyrocketing prices. Countries are already considering the possibility that their CO2 climate goals might get destroyed by Bitcoin mining. Bitcoin isn't a country, but it puts out CO2 at levels comparable to entire nations, and it's increasing fast. CO2 output from Bitcoin has increased by 2,000% in the past 8 years. That's an increase of 45% per year for the last 8 years. For comparison, China's CO2 output has increased by less than 6% per year for the last 20 years. Here's a summary of the costs of Bitcoin. Now keep in mind that these are the current numbers. If the price of Bitcoin increases, it'll get a lot worse. Now, Bitcoin defenders might try to counter by comparing it to other industries, like the global banking system. This ignores the fact that the banking system has orders of magnitude more customers and transactions than Bitcoin could ever handle. That's like saying my gas-guzzling megatruck only gets 1 mile to the gallon, but that's small compared to the gas consumption of Canada, so I think it's very fuel efficient. For example, this article says that Bitcoin uses 167 terawatts of electricity, but the global banking system uses around 260 terawatts. It concludes that Bitcoin is 35% more efficient than banks.
The comparison between Bitcoin's energy consumption and that of global banking systems offers surprising insights into the efficiency of digital currencies. Despite common perceptions, Bitcoin operates on significantly less energy, 35.4% less, than the combined energy used by worldwide banking operations. This analysis underscores the potential for digital currencies to offer more sustainable solutions in the financial sector.
But wait, how many transactions happen each day on Bitcoin versus the banking system? I wasn't able to find the numbers for the entire banking system, but credit card companies are part of the banking system and they handle around 2 billion transactions per day. Bitcoin is currently handling around 400,000 transactions a day, and its maximum capacity is around 600,000 transactions per day. Here's the thing. There's no way that the people who write these articles don't know they're doing an apples to oranges comparison. First I thought, well, maybe they're clueless, or maybe they're just trying to pump crypto, but they're probably just like interns who write these articles and they're saying things that they know that their boss wants to hear. So I don't know. Here's another article on a pro-crypto website. It claims that Bitcoin uses 0.5% of the global energy consumption, and then makes the claim that the banking system uses 56 times more electricity. That's not even plausible. If that were true, it would mean that the banking industry uses over 25% of global energy. Let's look at it from another perspective, the cost of a single Bitcoin transaction. A single Bitcoin transaction costs almost 1,200 kilowatt hours of electricity. This is the equivalent to the power consumption of a house for 40 days. You could do almost 1 million Visa transactions with that much electricity. You could drive a Tesla around 4,000 miles. And in dollars, a single transaction uses about $60 worth of electricity. Even worse, if the price of Bitcoin continues to rise, then electricity costs will too. If it reached $1 million, then a single Bitcoin transaction would cost around $700 in electricity. A single Bitcoin transaction produces 660 kilograms of CO2. It takes 1.5 million Visa transactions to produce the same CO2. It's equivalent to the CO2 produced by flying a round trip from New York to London, or driving 1,600 miles in a car, the distance from Chicago to LA. And these costs will continue to rise in proportion to the price of Bitcoin. And keep in mind that if you buy Bitcoin and then you sell Bitcoin, that's 2 transactions, so double all these numbers. The point is that Bitcoin is insanely wasteful, and it's crazy that people tell us it can replace the banking system. And having faster computers or cheaper electricity doesn't solve this problem. All it does is create incentives to add more computers to the network. Some Bitcoin advocates will argue that high energy consumption is a feature because it makes the network secure. And that's partially true, but it's also not a good defense. The problem is that there's a design flaw in Bitcoin that it needs massive inefficiency in order to be secure. Imagine this, you decide to create a competitor to Uber, except you want this rideshare program to be decentralized. It's not under the control of a single company. You come up with a way to accomplish this, except it requires burning 70 gallons of gasoline before each ride. This security system is such a waste of money that you have to charge passengers $200 a ride. People complain about the cost and you say, it's necessary for the security of the rideshare network. Even though that's true, it's still a horrible competitor against the existing Uber rideshare system. And it would be correct for consumers to say, we can't accept your horribly inefficient gasoline-burning rideshare system. It's expensive and it's terrible for the environment. No amount of, it's necessary for security, fixes that. As a side note, the Bitcoin network is extremely slow. It can handle about 7 transactions per second, which is about 600,000 transactions per day. So if every person on Earth wanted to do a Bitcoin transaction, it would take 36 years to process all of them. Each person would get to do 2 Bitcoin transactions in their entire life. It becomes apparent that so many of the people talking about how wonderful Bitcoin is don't seem to understand the technology well enough to understand its limitations and problems. They have a dollar sign in their eyes that blinds them to anything except, line goes up and I'll get rich.
And then you realize that there's not a single thing that those banks do that can't be done better, cheaper, more efficiently, faster on blockchain. I mean,
oh, Eric, it's crazy how people treat blockchain like it's some kind of magical efficient solution to everything. I will at least say in his defense that blockchain could be referring to any kind of crypto, and there are types of crypto that are much more efficient than Bitcoin. However, he's probably not talking about those other crypto projects. The Trump family is very heavily invested in Bitcoin. And why wouldn't they be, when Trump is talking about creating a national Bitcoin reserve, which will pump up the price of Bitcoin? By the way, if you want me to talk about Bitcoin or crypto or anything else for that matter, just leave a comment below.